In the cosmic dark between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, a silent sentinel keeps watch over our world. It is a digital eye, a network of telescopes known as ATLAS, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. Its singular purpose is a profound one: to scan the heavens for any threat, for any wandering rock that might stray too close to home. Night after night, its electronic gaze sweeps across the starfields, cataloguing the endless dance of asteroids and comets. It is a routine born of caution, a quiet, automated vigil. But on one otherwise unremarkable evening, the routine was broken. A new designation appeared on the monitors, an innocuous string of characters, a T25, P29. At first, it was just another data point among millions, a faint smear of light moving against the stellar backdrop. Its trajectory was calculated, its orbit plotted. It was an intruder, a visitor from the frigid outer darkness beyond Neptune, making a long, graceful fall toward the sun. Astronomers noted it, classified it, and moved on. Yet something was deeply wrong. The numbers, when checked and rechecked, refused to align with reality. This faint smear of light was not behaving as it should. It was not merely falling. It was not coasting. Against the relentless pull of the sun's gravity, which should have been gently slowing its departure from our system, a T25 P29 was doing the impossible. It was accelerating, and not by some trivial, barely measurable amount. The object, later catalogued as 3i Atlas, was increasing its velocity by more than 1 kilometre every single second. A change in speed so immense, so inexplicable, it felt less like an observation and more like a violation of the fundamental laws that govern the universe. In observatories across the globe, a quiet, urgent alarm began to sound. The silent sentinel had found something in the dark, but it was not the threat we'd been looking for. It was a mystery that would challenge everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmos. To comprehend the sheer absurdity of this event, we must first return to the elegant simplicity of the cosmos as we know it. Imagine standing on a shore, skipping a stone across a calm lake. You impart a force, and the stone flies true, but friction from the water and the pull of the Earth's gravity inevitably steal its momentum. The stone slows, and eventually it sinks. The universe, on a grand scale, operates on a similar principle. Every object, from a speck of dust to a galaxy, is bound by gravity. When a comet plunges inward from the Oort cloud, that vast ethereal sphere of icy bodies at the edge of our solar system, it is like a roller coaster cresting its highest hill. Gravity pulls it faster and faster, a spectacular dive toward the sun. It whips around our star in a brilliant hairpin turn, its frozen surface erupting into a magnificent tail of gas and dust. But then its journey reverses. As it climbs back out of the sun's gravitational well, it is fighting against that same immense pull. Like the roller coaster ascending the next rise, it must slow down. This is an inviolable rule, a celestial certainty etched into the fabric of space-time by Newton and refined by Einstein. Every comet, every asteroid we have ever witnessed has obeyed this law. They all decelerate as they flee the inner solar system. Some comets, of course, add a little twist to this cosmic ballet. As the sun's warmth bakes their surfaces, ices buried for eons can burst forth in powerful jets. This process, called sublimation, turns solid directly into gas. These jets act like tiny, unpredictable rocket thrusters, giving the comet a gentle, non-gravitational push. This can alter its path slightly, causing it to deviate from a perfect orbit. We have seen this phenomenon countless times. The push is subtle, a minute nudge measured in centimeters per second. It is the universe's equivalent of a gentle, random breeze. But what was observed with 3i Atlas was no gentle breeze. It was a hurricane, a tempest, a force of impossible magnitude. An acceleration of over 1,000 meters per second is not a nudge. It is a colossal, sustained burn from a powerful engine. It was as if the skipping stone halfway across the lake suddenly ignited a motor and shot off towards the opposite shore, leaving a wake that defied all logic. The initial reaction in the astronomical community was one of resolute disbelief. The data had to be wrong. It was the only rational conclusion. Perhaps a sensor on the Atlas telescope was malfunctioning. Maybe a glitch in the software was corrupting the astrometric calculations. Or perhaps sunlight was reflecting off the object in a bizarre way, creating a phantom measurement, an optical illusion on a cosmic scale. Every mundane explanation was proposed, scrutinized, and systematically dismantled. Other observatories, alerted to the anomaly, turned their own powerful eyes toward the faint speck of light. From the peaks of Hawaii to the high deserts of Chile, data began to pour in, confirming the unbelievable. The European Space Agency's Gaia satellite, a mission designed to map the galaxy with unprecedented precision, corroborated the findings. The Hubble Space Telescope, redirected from its deep space imaging, locked onto 3I Atlas and saw the same impossible surge. There was no glitch, there was no illusion. The object was real, and its acceleration was real. The community of scientists, men and women who had dedicated their lives to the predictable mathematical elegance of the heavens, were now confronted with an object that seemed to scorn their rules. A profound and unsettling silence fell over the field. The era of comfortable certainty was over. Something new had entered our solar system, and it was demanding that we question the very foundations of our knowledge. The designation itself, 3I Atlas, held a clue to its strangeness. The I stood for Interstellar. This was only the third such object ever definitively identified, a traveller from the void between the stars. Its predecessors had been enigmas in their own right. First came Oumuamua in 2017, a Hawaiian name meaning scout from a distant past. It was a bizarre cigar-shaped object that tumbled end over end, and it too showed a slight non-gravitational acceleration, a tiny push that ignited years of fervent debate. Then, in 2019 came Us/Borisov, a much more familiar sight. It looked and behaved like a classic comet, albeit one with a chemical composition subtly different from our own. Borisov was a comforting data point. It suggested that other star systems formed comets much like ours did. It implied a certain universality. Oumuamua was the outlier, the weird one. But 3I Atlas was something else entirely. Its acceleration wasn't just slightly more than Oumuamua's, it was orders of magnitude greater. It was a completely different class of phenomenon. If Oumuamua was a whisper of an anomaly, 3I Atlas was a primal scream. Dr. Aris Thorne, a planetary scientist at the Max Planck Institute, was one of the first to grasp the full implications of the data. He had spent his career modelling the outgassing of comets, creating complex simulations that could predict their behaviour down to the smallest wobble. He remembered the night the consolidated data from the worldwide network of telescopes landed in his inbox. The numbers on his screen seemed to mock his life's work. He ran his most sophisticated models, inputting the parameters for 3I Atlas. To generate the observed acceleration through cometary outgassing, his simulations produced a result that was physically laughable. The object would need to be expelling a significant fraction of its own mass in a perfectly focused, collimated jet of gas, like a celestial squid propelling itself through the void. This geyser would have to be enormous, far larger than the object itself, and it would have to maintain its thrust for weeks on end. Such an event would be spectacularly bright, a brilliant new star in our own solar system. Yet, when astronomers looked at 3I Atlas, they saw only a tiny, inert point of light. There was no coma, the fuzzy envelope of gas and dust that surrounds a comet. There was no tail. Spectroscopic analysis showed no signature of water vapour, no carbon monoxide, none of the usual suspects for cometary activity. The object was accelerating powerfully, yet it was doing so invisibly. The very concept was a paradox, a silent rocket, a ghost engine. The first wave of scientific papers began to appear, each one attempting to reconcile this impossibility with the laws of nature. Perhaps one theory went the object was composed of something truly exotic, something that wouldn't show up in a normal spectral analysis. What if it was made not of water ice, but of solid hydrogen? Solid hydrogen is a substance that can only exist at temperatures just a few degrees above absolute zero. It is incredibly volatile. A tiny amount of solar energy would cause it to sublimate with explosive force. A hydrogen iceberg, drifting between the stars for eons, could indeed produce a powerful invisible thrust as it neared our sun. It was an elegant if speculative solution. It preserved the laws of physics, but it required us to imagine a new class of cosmic object, one never before seen or even theorized. It would mean that deep space harbored wandering bombs of frozen hydrogen, remnants from the dawn of star formation. Another hypothesis centered on a violent, unseen event. Could 3I Atlas have been part of a binary pair, two objects orbiting each other? Perhaps they collided and shattered, or one piece was flung away, causing the other to recoil with tremendous force, like a cannon shooting a cannonball. The problem with this idea was the lack of evidence. A cataclysmic fragmentation should have produced a cloud of debris, a trail of cosmic breadcrumbs that our telescopes would have detected. But the space around 3I Atlas was clean. The object was moving alone, a solitary bullet fired from an unseen gun. Each natural explanation, no matter how clever or exotic, seemed to require a miracle of circumstance. A perfectly shaped object, made of a hypothetical material, with a jet aimed in exactly the right direction, or a fragmentation event that was somehow perfectly clean. As each of these theories began to look increasingly improbable, a more unsettling possibility began to surface in quiet conversations, in late-night emails between trusted colleagues. It was a thought so profound, so paradigm-shifting, that few dared to voice it publicly at first. What if the force pushing 3I Atlas was not natural at all? What if the ghost engine was in fact an engine? Humanity has long dreamed of sailing between the stars. Our own efforts, the Voyager and Pioneer probes, are magnificent achievements, but they are little more than messages in a bottle, cast into a cosmic ocean. They are coasting, destined to drift aimlessly for millions of years. To truly travel, to maneuver and explore, requires propulsion. One of the most elegant concepts for interstellar travel is the solar sail. It is a technology of profound simplicity and grace. Imagine a vast, impossibly thin sheet of reflective material, kilometers wide but no thicker than a fraction of a human hair. In the vacuum of space, this immense mirror would be deployed. It has no engine, no fuel, no exhaust. Its propellant is the light of a star itself. Sunlight, which we perceive as warmth and illumination, is composed of countless particles called photons. While each individual photon is massless, it carries momentum. When a photon strikes a surface and bounces off, it imparts a tiny, almost infinitesimal push. One photon is nothing, but trillions upon trillions of them, striking a massive reflective sail every second, add up to a continuous gentle pressure. It is the softest of winds, but in the frictionless void of space, this gentle, relentless push can build up over time. A solar sail spacecraft would accelerate slowly but constantly. Over weeks, months and years, its velocity would climb to incredible speeds, far beyond what any chemical rocket could achieve. It is a technology we're only just beginning to develop, with small-scale test missions proving the principle. But an advanced civilization, one that had mastered stellar engineering, could construct sails of unimaginable size and efficiency. They could be launched from their home system by powerful laser arrays, pushed to a significant fraction of the speed of light. Such a sail, upon arriving at a destination star system like our own, could then use the light of the new star to brake, to maneuver, to change course. Now consider 3I Atlas. It is a small, dim object. This implies it is either made of a very dark material, or it is extremely thin. It is undergoing a massive non-gravitational acceleration away from the Sun. This is precisely the behaviour one would expect from a solar sail, oriented to catch the light of our Sun to propel it outward. The lack of a visible coma or outgassing is no longer a paradox. A sail is inert. It doesn't vent gas. It reflects light. The force is generated silently, invisibly, by the pressure of sunlight itself. The numbers began to align with an unnerving precision. Astrophysicists calculated the kind of sail that would be required to produce the observed acceleration. It would need to be extraordinarily light, with a density less than that of air, and possess a surface that was almost perfectly reflective. It would be a feat of material science far beyond our current capabilities, but it did not violate any known law of physics. It was merely an act of engineering. The implication was staggering, a thought that sent shivers down the spine of humanity. Was 3I Atlas a piece of technology? Was this small, faint point of light an artifact, a relic from a civilization unknown? The object's trajectory took on a new, more sinister or perhaps wondrous meaning. It hadn't simply fallen into our solar system at random. Its path was a hyperbolic trajectory, a clear sign of its interstellar origin. It had swooped in, passed within the orbit of Jupiter, and then, just as it began its long journey back out into the void, this incredible acceleration began. It was as if it had made a deliberate course correction. Why? Was it a probe, an interstellar scout, just like the meaning of Oumuamua? Had it come to observe our solar system, gathering data on its planets, its star, its potential for life? Did it detect our own burgeoning technological civilization, the faint radio chatter we have been leaking into space for a century? Perhaps its mission was complete, and it was now firing up its propulsion system to head towards its next target, another star in another part of the galaxy. This line of reasoning opens a Pandora's box of existential questions. Who built it? Where did they come from? Are they still out there? The object itself was utterly silent in the radio spectrum. The SETI Institute and arrays around the world strained to hear the faintest whisper of a transmission, a beacon, an engineering signal. But there was only the cold, indifferent hiss of the cosmic background. This silence could mean many things. It could mean the object was derelict, a ghost ship sailing the interstellar seas, its creators long vanished into cosmic history. It could be a von Neumann probe, an autonomous, self-replicating robot designed to explore and report back with no need to communicate with us. Or perhaps most humbling of all, its builders were simply not interested. To them, we might be as insignificant as an ant-mound to a human surveyor. They have their mission, and our existence is merely a footnote in their logs. The world's most powerful scientific instruments were now locked on this single target. The newly launched James Webb Space Telescope, with its unparalleled sensitivity, offered our best hope of unravelling the mystery. Its giant golden mirror stared unblinkingly at 3I Atlas, gathering the faint photons that had travelled for hours across the solar system. The first data to be analysed was the infrared spectrum. This would be the moment of truth. A spectrum acts like a chemical fingerprint, revealing the composition of an object by analysing the specific wavelengths of light it absorbs or reflects. If 3I Atlas was a hydrogen iceberg, the JWST would see the signature of hydrogen. If it was a bizarre comet, it would detect frozen gases like carbon monoxide or nitrogen. The scientific community held its collective breath as the data was processed. The result, when it finally came, was perhaps the most baffling outcome of all. There was nothing. The spectrum was flat, featureless. It showed no significant absorption lines for any known volatile compound. No water, no carbon monoxide, no hydrogen, no nitrogen. It was the spectrum of an inert, rocky object, or perhaps a metallic one. But a rock cannot generate over a kilometre per second of acceleration. The natural explanations, already strained, were now stretched to the breaking point. A hydrogen iceberg theory was dead. The exotic comet hypothesis was gone. Simultaneously, the Webb telescope, along with the Hubble, was attempting to resolve the object's shape and rotation. This was a monumental challenge. Even to our best telescopes, 3I Atlas was little more than a single pixel of light. But by analysing the subtle, periodic changes in its brightness, scientists could build a crude model of its form. Oumuamua had revealed its strange, elongated shape through this very method. As the light curve for 3I Atlas emerged, another layer of strangeness was added. The object did not seem to be tumbling like Oumuamua. Its brightness was remarkably stable, with only very slight periodic dips. This suggested it was not an irregular potato-shaped asteroid. The data was consistent with a flat disc-like or sheet-like object, with its face oriented towards the sun. It was behaving exactly as a stabilised solar sail would. Every piece of data that arrived seemed to shut the door on a natural origin, and open the window a little wider to an artificial one. A dark, inert object with a flat profile, exhibiting no outgassing, yet accelerating directly away from the sun with enormous force. If one were to design a probe to behave this way, this is what it would look like. The debate erupted from the confines of academia and into the public sphere. The evidence was circumstantial, yet compelling. There was no definitive proof, no "we come in peace" message. There was only an object moving in a way that it shouldn't, with every natural explanation failing to account for its behaviour. This is the very definition of a technological signature. It is the calling card of intelligence, an event that willfully deviates from the expected, predictable path of nature. The discovery of 3E Atlas forces humanity to confront the Fermi paradox in the most direct way imaginable. The paradox, named after physicist Enrico Fermi, asks a simple question. If the universe is teeming with life and advanced civilizations, where is everybody? The galaxy is ancient. There has been ample time for civilizations to arise, develop interstellar travel, and colonize or at least explore the Milky Way. Yet we see no evidence of them. The heavens are silent. This great silence has haunted scientists and philosophers for decades. Dozens of potential solutions have been proposed. Perhaps intelligent life is incredibly rare. Perhaps civilizations inevitably destroy themselves before they can reach the stars. Perhaps they are hiding, deliberately avoiding contact. Or perhaps they are here, but we lack the senses to perceive them. 3. I-Atlas presents itself as a potential answer. Maybe the galaxy isn't filled with bustling empires like in our science fiction. Maybe it is explored by quiet, patient, autonomous probes. Robotic emissaries, plying the interstellar darkness for millions of years, carrying out their ancient programming. They would not be loud. They would be efficient, subtle, and perhaps completely indifferent. Their presence would only be revealed by a subtle anomaly, a deviation from the gravitational clockwork of the cosmos, a faint point of light, accelerating when it should be slowing down. If 3I Atlas is indeed an artifact, then the Great Silence is not a sign of absence, but perhaps a sign of subtlety. The galaxy may not be empty, but merely quiet. We may be living in a cosmic wilderness, filled with the tracks and traces of unseen explorers, and we have only just learned how to spot them. This realization is both terrifying and exhilarating. It means we are not alone, but it also means we are cosmic newcomers, infants in a galaxy inhabited by beings of incomprehensible age and power. The philosophical and societal shockwaves would be immense. Our religions, our philosophies, our sense of self-importance, all would be re-evaluated. The human story would no longer be the only story. It would become a single, local chapter in a galactic saga of unimaginable scope. But we must not let our imaginations run away from the evidence. Science demands skepticism. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and the proof, in this case, remains just out of reach. 3I Atlas is now speeding away from us, its impossible acceleration carrying it back out into the interstellar abyss. Each day it grows fainter, harder to track. Soon, it will fade beyond the reach of even our most powerful telescopes, taking its secrets with it. We may never know for certain what it was. The mystery may endure for generations, a cosmic riddle for our descendants to ponder. Perhaps this is its true purpose. Whether a natural marvel or an alien messenger, 3I Atlas has already changed us. It has forced us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the boundless possibilities that the universe holds. It has reignited our sense of wonder, that primal urge to look up at the night sky and ask the biggest questions of all. Are we alone? What else is out there? And what is our place in this vast, silent, and suddenly much more mysterious cosmos? The faint point of light recedes, a departing question mark against the infinite black. We are left behind, on our small blue world staring after it, forever altered by the visitor that came, accelerated and vanished, leaving only the echo of an impossible journey. The search for answers will now begin in earnest. New telescopes will be designed, new missions planned, some perhaps even conceived to chase down these interstellar messengers. We have been awakened from a long, planetary slumber. The universe has sent us a wake-up call, a demonstration that the cosmos is stranger, more complex and more magnificent than we ever dared to dream. The story of 3i Atlas is not an ending, it is a beginning. It is the moment humanity was reminded that the darkness between the stars is not empty, it is full of possibilities. The year is 2024. The date is January 15th. The time is 22 hours and 30 minutes Coordinated Universal Time. On a desolate plateau in the Karoo region of the southern tip of the African continent, the air is thin and holds the frigid indifference of the high desert. Here, far from the frantic luminescence of human civilization, a sentinel stands in the dark. It is a machine of glass and steel, an unblinking eye aimed at the abyss. It does not feel the bite of the wind nor the crushing silence of the night. It only waits. It only calculates. The universe is not a home. It is not a sanctuary designed for the comfort of biological entities. It is a vast, cold mechanism. A ruthless machine operating on the inexorable logic of mathematics and the cold efficiency of entropy. For eons, this machine has processed the movements of celestial bodies with the precision of a clockmaker who has long since departed his workshop. Stars ignite, burn through their hydrogen reserves, and collapse into remnants, all according to the hard-coded subroutines of physics. There is no grace here, only the cold output of a cosmic rendering engine that has been running since the first light broke the primordial void. The telescope at the Sutherland Observation Station is a vital component of this local data collection. It scans the ecliptic, mapping the debris of our solar system, documenting the wandering rocks that are the leftovers of a 4-billion-year-old construction project. On this specific night, the machine registers a flicker, a minute deviation in the expected stream of photons, a tiny moving point of light that does not belong to the standard celestial catalogue. In the language of the machine, this is an anomaly. The object is designated as 3i Atlas. It is a hyperbolic visitor, a traveller from the interstellar void that has breached the outer perimeter of our sun's gravitational influence. Most objects in our neighbourhood are bound by the predictable loops of elliptical orbits, trapped in the repetitive cycles of the solar system's internal logic. But 3i Atlas is different. Its trajectory is a single, sharp curve that will never return. It is a line of code written in a language the local system does not fully recognise. As the data streams from the sensor to the processors, the ruthless nature of the cosmos becomes apparent. To the universe, this visitor is nothing more than a momentary glitch in the rendering of space-time. It is a stray bit of information passing through a narrow sector of the void. It carries no message. It harbours no intent. It is a cold remnant of a distant star system, perhaps ejected during some ancient catastrophe hundreds of millions of years ago. Now, it drifts through the abyss, a silent witness to the emptiness that defines the vast majority of existence. To understand the scale of this encounter, one must look past the tiny speck of light and see the mechanism behind it. We often imagine the solar system as a busy neighbourhood, but in reality, it is a graveyard of distance. Between the planets lie reaches of nothingness so profound that the human mind can only grasp them through abstraction. The solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles from our sun, acts as a standard subroutine, a background radiation that defines the local environment. Yet, 3i Atlas cuts through this wind with a velocity that defies the usual planetary mechanics. It is moving too fast to be captured. It is an error in the calculation of stability, a reminder that the universe is far larger and more chaotic than our local maps suggest. The discovery of this visitor reveals the scale paradox that haunts our species. We sit upon a small, fragile rock, protected by a thin veil of atmosphere, watching the cold gears of the cosmos turn. We see a hyperbolic path and we give it a name, 3i Atlas, as if naming it grants us some measure of control. But the machine does not care for names. It only cares for mass, velocity, and the curvature of space-time. The object is a fragment of the primordial tapestry, a piece of the original void that has somehow survived the ignition of countless stars. Consider the journey this shard has taken. It has crossed the light years between the stars, moving through the silent, eternal darkness where the temperature hovers just above absolute zero. It has navigated the canyons of the interstellar medium, surviving the relentless decay of time and the abrasive touch of cosmic rays. And now, for a brief epoch in its billion-year existence, it passes within the reach of our instruments. It is a scan line appearing on the monitor of history, a momentary flash of data before it is lost once more to the oblivion of the deep galaxy. The ruthless machine that is our universe operates without regard for the witnesses it has produced. Consciousness is a late addition to the rendering, a flickering spark of awareness that observes the gears but cannot stop them. When the telescope in South Africa flagged this visitor, it was not an act of wonder but a mathematical necessity. The algorithms detected a value that did not fit the model, a glitch, a deviation from the expected scan line of the night sky. As we look at the data points, we are forced to confront the existential pivot of our place in the cosmos. We are the observers of a mechanism that does not know we are here. The light from 3i Atlas took years to reach the lens of the telescope, crossing the abyss with the patient inevitability of a ticking clock. By the time the image was processed, the object had already moved on, its path dictated by the invisible hand of gravity, unravelling the secrets of its origin as it plunged back into the dark. This is the beauty and the horror of the universe we inhabit. It is a symphony played on instruments of stone and fire, where the players are dead stars and the audience is a collection of sentient dust. The discovery on January 15th, 2024 was not a greeting from the stars. It was the sound of a gear turning in the dark. It was a reminder that the tapestry of space-time is vast, cold, and entirely indifferent to the eyes that try to read its patterns. 3i Atlas will continue its flight. It will exit our solar system and return to the great void, becoming once again a silent sentinel of the interstellar abyss. It will outlive our civilizations, our languages, and perhaps our very species. It is a piece of the eternal machine, a fragment of the inexorable process that began with the first ignition and will end with the final decay of the last atom. We are merely the ones who happen to be watching when the glitch passed through the light, capturing a single frame of a cosmic movie that has no beginning and no end. We stand on the plateau of the Karoo, under the shadow of the telescope, and we feel the weight of the silence. The machine continues to run, the calculations continue to scroll, and the universe remains, as it has always been, a magnificent and terrifying void. This visitor, designated as the third of its kind, represents a fundamental breach in the local order of our solar system. To understand its nature is to understand the rigidity of the celestial mechanics that govern our lives. Our sun is a sovereign entity, a massive engine of gravity that imposes its will upon everything within its reach. For 4.5 billion years, the planets, the moons, and the trillions of icy fragments in the Oort cloud have followed the same predictable loops, bound by the invisible chains of the solar governor. They are the permanent inhabitants of this quiet corner of the abyss, trapped in a closed loop of existence. But this object is different. It is a heretic to the local laws, a piece of external data that has been injected into our local memory from the profound darkness of interstellar space. The machine of the universe does not provide a warm welcome to such wanderers. It merely processes them. Before this arrival, the record of our system had only been interrupted twice by such high-velocity anomalies. The first was the jagged, tumbling shadow known as Oumuamua, which streaked through our inner sanctum in October of 2017. It was a silent sentinel from a distant, unknown forge, moving with a speed that defied the sun's ability to anchor it. Then came the comet Borisov in August of 2019, a tail of frozen gas trailing behind a nucleus that had never felt the warmth of our particular star. These were the first and second packets of data from the deep galaxy, and now, with the arrival of 3i Atlas, the protocol of interstellar intrusion is firmly established. Consider the ruthless precision of the trajectory that brings such an object into our field of view. In the language of the cosmic machine, we speak of eccentricity. A circle has an eccentricity of 0. The elliptical paths of the planets, though slightly elongated, remain close to this value, ensuring their eternal return. But this visitor possesses a hyperbolic trajectory. This is a path of no return. It is a mathematical declaration of independence. The object enters the Sun's domain at such a ferocious velocity that the gravity of our star, the local governing algorithm, cannot close the loop. The Sun pulls with all its immense mass, attempting to bend the traveller into a permanent orbit, but the visitor is too fast, too indifferent. It curves around the solar fire not as a captive, but as a slingshot, stealing a fraction of the Sun's energy to propel itself back into the oblivion from which it came. This is the ruthless machine in its purest form. There is no negotiation between the star and the stone. There is only the inexorable calculation of mass, velocity, and distance. The object does not care that it is being watched by the descendants of apes on a small watery world. The Sun does not care that it is losing a potential treasure to the void. The interaction is a cold, mechanical event, as devoid of emotion as the grinding of gears in a clock that has been ticking since the dawn of time. We frame this as a momentous discovery, a cinematic event in the history of astronomy, but to the cosmos, it is merely a momentary flicker in the processing of 1 trillion similar events occurring across the Milky Way. The origin of this shard lies in the vast, unmapped territories between the stars. It was forged in the chaotic birth of a distant stellar system, perhaps ejected during the violent migration of gas giants, or the death throes of a sun that expired eons ago. Since that moment of expulsion, it has been a nomad, drifting through the interstellar medium where the density of matter is so low that it is indistinguishable from a total vacuum. For millions, perhaps billions of years, it has existed in a state of stasis, a relic of a primordial epoch preserved by the absolute zero of the abyss. It has crossed the light years, navigating the magnetic fields of the galaxy and the pressure of the solar winds, until its path finally intersected with ours. We call this an interstellar protocol, a set of rules that define how an outsider interacts with our local physics. When the object crossed the threshold of our system, it triggered a series of observations that are in themselves part of the machine's output. We are the sensors of the solar system, the biological components of a planetary surveillance network. When our telescopes pivoted to track this shard, we were fulfilling a function dictated by our curiosity, which is itself a product of the inexorable drive to understand the environment. But the data we collect is fleeting. Because of its hyperbolic path, the window for observation is narrow. We have only weeks or months to stare into the void before the object recedes, its brightness fading as it moves further from the sun, eventually becoming a ghost in the infrared before vanishing entirely into the dark tapestry of the background stars. The memory of Oumuamua and Borisov haunts this new encounter. They taught us that the universe is not a closed system. We're not an island, but a port of call on a vast dark ocean. The arrival of 3I Atlas is a reminder that the void is populated, not necessarily by life, but by the remnants of celestial processes that occurred far beyond our horizon. Each of these visitors is a messenger that carries no message. They are fragments of other worlds, other histories, and other catastrophes, delivered to our doorstep by the indifferent hands of gravity and time. They represent the scale paradox that defines our existence. We are small enough to feel the weight of this encounter, yet the encounter itself is so large that it transcends our ability to truly grasp its significance. As we watch this third visitor depart, we are forced to acknowledge the temporary nature of our witness. The machine will continue to run long after the data from 3I Atlas has been archived and forgotten. Other shards will enter the system, other hyperbolic paths will be traced across the heavens. The sun will continue to attempt its captures, and the interstellar nomads will continue to escape. We inhabit a brief moment of light between two eternities of darkness, and these objects are the only physical link we have to the vastness that surrounds us. They are the evidence that the abyss is not empty, but filled with the silent, drifting debris of a universe that is constantly unravelling and rebuilding itself. The object is now moving toward the edge of the heliosphere. the boundary where the sun's influence finally yields to the pressure of the interstellar wind. It is returning to the deep galaxy, to the silent corridors between the stars where the light of our sun will eventually shrink to a single, indistinguishable point among billions. It carries with it the scars of its brief encounter with our star, a slight change in temperature, a subtle shift in its rotation, a minute alteration of its trajectory. These are the only records of its passage. It will not remember us. It will not remember the sun. It will simply continue its journey through the eternal night, a sentinel of the void, a piece of the primordial machine that refuses to be tamed. We are left on our planetary pedestal, staring at the empty space where it once was, feeling the cold breath of the cosmos and the inexorable tick of the universal clock. The protocol is complete. The memory remains. The machine moves on. But as we peer closer into the telemetry of 3i Atlas, something breaks. The geometry of the heavens, usually so rigid and predictable, presents a visual paradox that defies the intuition of the observer. We expect the comet to behave like a torch held aloft in a gale. The solar wind, that invisible and relentless stream of charged particles emanating from the sun, should strip away the debris and hurl it into the abyss, creating a tail that points forever away from the heart of the system. This is the law. It is the fundamental algorithm of the solar environment, a rule written into the very fabric of the celestial machine. Yet, as the visitor rounds the solar furnace, a second structure emerges, an impossible feature that contradicts everything we thought we understood about the flow of cosmic energy. It is a needle-thin sliver of light. It does not point toward the dark oblivion of the outer reaches. Instead, it reaches inward. It pierces the void in the direction of the sun itself, a glowing lance of silver that seems to defy the very pressure of the light that created it. To the watchers on their distant planetary pedestals, it appears as a violation of the engine. It is as if a gear has slipped within the universal mechanism, or as if the code of reality has encountered a logic error. This sunward glow, this anti-tail, is a phantom that should not exist in a world governed by the simple push and pull of radiation. It is a moment where the rigid rules of celestial mechanics appear to have been rewritten or bypassed, leaving us to wonder if the engine of our reality is as flawless as we once believed. To understand this defiance, we must look at the universe as a ruthless machine of momentum and scale. Most cometary tails are composed of gas and fine dust, particles so small they are easily bullied by the photons of the sun. But 3i Atlas is shedding something more substantial. It is leaving behind a trail of larger fragments, pebbles and shards the size of mountain peaks or grains of coarse sand, which are too heavy to be swept away by the solar breeze. These remnants remain locked in the orbital plane of the visitor, tracing the same path it has travelled through the eons. They are the heavy cargo of a long journey, too stubborn to be diverted by the light. When the geometry of our viewpoint aligns with the precision of a master clockmaker, we see this trail not as it is, but as a sunward spike. It is a trick of perspective, a phantom limb of the comet's past, creating the illusion of a needle pointing toward the fire. This is the scale paradox in its most haunting form. What looks like a violation of physics is actually the result of a deeper, more ancient law, the law of inertia. The comet is so massive, and its debris so significant, that it maintains its course even when the sun itself attempts to push it back. The anti-tail is not a sign that the engine has failed, but a sign that the engine operates on multiple levels of reality simultaneously. While the gas tail represents the present struggle against the sun's fury, the anti-tail is a silent witness to the primordial journey. It is a physical manifestation of history, a bridge across the abyss that connects the distant past of the interstellar void with the immediate present of our solar system. We inhabit a world where we expect causes to lead directly to effects, where we expect the wind to blow only one way. But the cosmos is a tapestry of overlapping forces, where the heavy and the light, the ancient and the ephemeral, exist in a state of constant tension. To see a needle of light pointing toward the sun is to see the ghost of a path already taken. It is the evidence that nothing in the universe is truly lost. The debris of 1 billion years of travel remains, invisible until the light of a star strikes it at the perfect angle. This sunward glow is a reminder that our perspective is limited. We see the violation, but the universe sees only the inexorable fulfillment of its own complex equations. As the visitor continues its transit, the antitail begins to unravel, shifting its position as the angle of observation changes. It is a fleeting phenomenon, a temporary glitch in our perception of the cosmic order. But for the duration of its appearance, it remains a chilling sight. It challenges the observer to rethink the nature of the vacuum. The void is not empty, and the rules are not always what they seem. We are witnesses to a moment of celestial dissonance, a performance by a sentinel from the deep dark that refuses to follow the script. The sunward glow is a signature, a mark left by an object that has spent more time in the silence between stars than we can possibly imagine. There is a certain melancholic beauty in this apparent error. It suggests that even in a universe governed by the cold, hard logic of gravity and thermodynamics, there is room for the unexpected. The needle-thin glow reaching toward the fire is a metaphor for the human condition itself. We are small, fragile beings caught in the immense currents of time and space, yet we often find ourselves reaching in directions that defy the prevailing winds. We look toward the light even when the pressure of existence seeks to push us into the dark. Like the antitail of Three-Eye Atlas, our presence is a paradox, a brief and shining defiance of the entropy that eventually devours all things. The machine of the cosmos continues to turn, indifferent to our wonder. The visitor does not care that it has sparked a crisis of understanding among the inhabitants of a small blue world. It simply moves, following its hyperbolic trajectory through the epoch. The sunward glow will eventually fade, becoming once again the invisible dust of the orbital plane, a silent remnant of a journey that will never be repeated. We are left to archive the data, to map the anomaly, and to reflect on the fact that we live in a universe where even the light can be a liar. The engine is vast, the rules are deep, and we are only just beginning to learn how to read the shadows cast by the messengers of the void. This encounter with Three-Eye Atlas has stripped away the comfort of our certainties. It has shown us that the sky is not a static ceiling but a dynamic and often deceptive arena. The antitail is the first of many mysteries that this visitor will present, a warning that as we go deeper into the history of the universe, we must be prepared for the rules to change. We must be prepared for the moment when the machine behaves in ways that we cannot explain, and when the silence of the abyss is broken by a glow that points the wrong way. The sentinel moves on, leaving us to contemplate the needle of a light that pierced our understanding, and reminded us that in the heart of the cosmos, the impossible is merely a matter of perspective. To understand the nature of this optical heresy, we must first descend from the heights of poetic wonder and confront the cold, mathematical architecture of the cosmos. The universe is not a canvas of whimsy, but a rigorous engine of geometry, where every shadow and every beam of light is dictated by the inexorable positioning of the observer. What we perceive as a violation of the laws of physics is, in truth, a masterpiece of perspective. To grasp the sunward glow of Three-Eye Atlas, we must look beyond the spectacle and see the celestial mechanism for what it truly is, a vast, rotating disk of debris and light, governed by the silent laws of the ecliptic plane. Imagine, if you will, the solar system not as a collection of spheres floating in a void, but as a thin, silver sheet of glass stretching out toward the infinite dark. This is the orbital plane, the stage upon which the planets perform their eternal dance around the fire of the sun. As the visitor from the abyss, Three-Eye Atlas, plunges through this disk, it does not travel alone. It leaves behind a trail of heavy, primordial remnants, a wake of grit and stone that marks its passage through the inner system. These are not the ethereal, ghostly particles of the gas tail, which are whipped into a frenzy by the solar wind and pushed away from the sun like smoke in a gale. Instead, these are the massive millimetre-sized grains of sand and pebble, the solid ghosts of a world that never was. These larger particles are indifferent to the pressure of sunlight. They are too heavy to be bullied by the solar wind, and so they remain anchored to the trajectory of the comet, spreading out along its orbital path like a long, thin carpet of dust. This is the debris field, a silent sentinel of the comet's history. For most of its journey, this carpet is invisible to us, lost in the overwhelming blackness of the abyss. But there comes a specific moment in time, an epoch of alignment, when the Earth itself crosses the very plane in which this debris resides. We can find clarity through a ladder of abstraction. Think of a camera lens moving through a field of falling snow on a dark night. If the lens is pointed upward, the snowflakes appear as chaotic, shimmering dots, scattered randomly across the frame. But if the camera is lowered, coming perfectly level with a single, horizontal layer of those falling flakes, the perspective shifts. Suddenly the scattered dots vanish, replaced by a single, brilliant line of light that seems to pierce the darkness. The snow has not changed its behaviour. It has not suddenly decided to form a spear. It is only the position of the lens, the specific angle of the witness, that transforms a cloud of dust into a needle of fire. In this cosmic theatre, the Earth is the camera. As our world glides through the ecliptic, we find ourselves edge onto the comet's orbital plane. We are looking directly down the length of that carpet of dust. The sunward glow is not a tail pointing forward into the wind. It is the collective light of millions of millimetre-sized grains, all perfectly aligned from our point of view. It is a trick of the eye, a geometric illusion that occurs only when the observer, the sun, and the debris field are locked in a brief and fatal symmetry. The ruthless machine is not broken. It is simply functioning on a scale that ignores our intuitive understanding of direction. This alignment reveals a fundamental truth about our place in the cosmos. We are prone to see intention where there is only geometry. We see a tail reaching for the sun, and we imagine a defiance of nature, a sentinel of the void struggling against the light. But the machine is indifferent to our interpretations. The grains of 3i Atlas do not care that they appear to be a sunward spike. They are merely following the same gravitational currents that have guided them for eons. They are the remnants of a primordial catastrophe, bits of ice and rock that have survived since the dawn of the system, now caught in a momentary spotlight as we pass them by. The vastness of this illusion is humbling. It reminds us that our sensory experience is a filtered, narrow window into a much larger reality. We look at the sky and see a two-dimensional tapestry, but the universe operates in the deep volumes of four-dimensional space-time. The anti-tail is the point where our limited perception hits a wall. It is the moment where the three-dimensional reality of the comet's path is projected onto the flat screen of our night sky, creating a shape that seems impossible. It is a reminder that the void is thick with unseen structures, with planes of dust and rivers of gravity that we only notice when the light hits them just right. As we dwell within this epoch of observation, we must recognize that the sunward glow is a fleeting gift of the ecliptic. Soon, the Earth will continue its inexorable journey around the sun, moving above or below the plane of the comet's debris. When that happens, the illusion will unravel. The needle of light will broaden, blur, and eventually vanish into the background radiation of the cosmos. The sentinel will go back to being a ghost, and the needle will return to being a scattered cloud of cold, dark grit. The performance will end not because the comet has changed, but because the witness has moved. There is a profound melancholy in this realization. It suggests that much of what we think we know about the universe may be nothing more than a matter of where we are standing. We map the stars and name the nebulae, believing we are seeing the true face of the abyss, but we are always looking through the lens of our own position in time and space. The antitail of 3i Atlas is a warning from the deep dark. It tells us that the rules are deep, the mechanism is vast, and the light is often a liar. The sunward glow is a signature of the ruthless machine, a sign that the geometry of the universe is beautiful, precise, and utterly indifferent to whether or not we understand the show. We are left to marvel at the scale of it all. Each of those millimetre-sized grains is a world unto itself, a remnant of the primordial cloud that birthed the sun and the planets. They have drifted in the silence for billions of years, only to be briefly illuminated by a chance encounter with a small blue world. The tapestry of the cosmos is woven from such threads, unseen, massive, and following a logic that transcends our daily lives. As we watch the sunward glow fade, we are reminded that we are merely passengers on a craft moving through a field of ancient wreckage, catching glimpses of the truth only when the orbits align and the shadows fall away. The machine turns, the void waits, and the history of the universe continues its silent, eternal march, regardless of the illusions that briefly dance before our eyes. Yet, as the light is pulled apart through the glass of our senses, the deception of the sunward glow gives way to a harsher, more undeniable truth. To understand the intruder is to look past the geometry of its path and into the very marrow of its composition. We deploy the tools of spectroscopy, those delicate harps of light that allow us to hear the chemical symphony of a distant object. We are not merely looking at a rock, we are reading a ledger of a forgotten epoch, a chemical signature written in the frozen language of the deep abyss. What we find there is a profound deviation from the order we have come to expect within our own solar neighbourhood. In the hearts of our native comets, water is the primary architect, a frozen foundation that sublimates into the familiar tales of our night sky. But within this visitor, there is a chilling silence where the signature of water should be. The data reveals an absolute absence of water ice, a void where the most common nectar of our system is missing. Instead, the sensors detect a staggering concentration of complex carbon chain molecules, long and intricate structures that speak of a birth in a far more alien and unforgiving environment. This is a dry world, a remnant of a primordial catastrophe that occurred under a different sky. It is a fragment of a landscape that was never kissed by the gentle rains of a young planetary system, but was instead forged in the fires of a much more brutal mechanism. We are witnessing the debris of a world that was stripped of its volatiles long before it was cast into the interstellar void. This chemical profile suggests an origin shrouded in the dim, red light of a dying sun. Most of the stars in our galaxy are not like our own yellow dwarf. They are small, violent, and incredibly long-lived red dwarfs. These stars are the sentinels of the cosmos, burning with a low, sullen intensity for trillions of years. However, their longevity comes at a terrible price for any world that circles them. They are prone to savage flares, outbursts of radiation that can scour the atmosphere from a planet and boil away its oceans in a cosmic instant. This fragment, this cold sentinel now passing through our system, likely began its journey as part of a planet orbiting such a star. It is a relic of a world that was devoured by the inexorable radiation of its own parent, a piece of a crust that was baked dry until only the heaviest carbon chains remained, clinging to the stone like the charred remains of a forest after a fire. The presence of these carbon molecules points to a computational environment within the early stellar disk that was vastly different from our own. In the history of our system, the chemistry was dictated by a specific balance of heat and pressure, a golden window that allowed for the abundance of ice and the eventual emergence of life. But for this visitor, the rules were dictated by the ruthless machine of a red dwarf's evolution. This object was born in a debris field, where the very building blocks of matter were assembled under the gaze of a star that was both a creator and a destroyer. It is a piece of a rogue planet's history, a fragment of a world that was perhaps ejected from its home during a period of orbital instability, cast out into the eternal night to wander for eons. As we contemplate this dry, carbon-rich husk, we are forced to confront the sheer variety of the cosmos. Our own experience is a narrow slice of the possible. We live in a wet, vibrant corner of the universe, but the vast majority of the stars out there are these small red furnaces, surrounding themselves with scorched and broken worlds. The intruder is a messenger from that silent majority. It is a testament to the fact that the universe is not designed for us. It is a sprawling, indifferent tapestry of environments, most of which are far more hostile than we can imagine. The lack of water in this fragment is not just a chemical detail, it is a sign of a different destiny. It is the signature of a world that never knew the possibility of a sea, a world where the only thing that could survive the primordial heat was the dark skeletal structure of carbon. This fragment has crossed the void between stars, a journey that may have lasted for hundreds of millions of years. During that time, it was a ghost in the dark, a tiny speck of matter moving through the emptiness of the interstellar medium. It has survived the decay of its home system and the death of its neighbours. To look at its chemical signature is to look at a fossil of a star system that may no longer exist. The star that birthed this rock could have long since faded into a black dwarf, or it could be burning still, oblivious to the fact that a tiny piece of its history is currently being illuminated by a distant yellow sun. The scale of this movement transcends our human understanding of time. We measure our lives in decades, our civilizations in millennia, but this piece of stone measures its life in epochs. The vacuum of the interstellar void is a perfect preservative. Without an atmosphere to cause erosion, without heat to trigger chemical changes, the visitor has remained exactly as it was when it was first cast out. It is a time capsule from a harsher reality. When we analyse the carbon chains, we are touching the very same atoms that were forged in the heart of a red dwarf's nebula 5 billion years ago. The mechanism of the universe has carried this message across the abyss, delivering it to our doorstep so that we might catch a glimpse of the catastrophe that created it. It is a reminder that every piece of light we see, every grain of dust that falls through our atmosphere, is a part of a much larger, more ancient story. There is a certain melancholy in the realization that this object is so utterly dry. Water is the symbol of potential, the precursor to the complexity of biology. Its absence here marks this visitor as a memento mori of the cosmos. It is a reminder that for every world like ours, there are a million others that are cold, dead, and stripped of the elements that we equate with life. The universe is a vast graveyard of failed experiments and broken planets, and we are simply passing through a field of their remains. The intruder does not care about our observations. It does not know that it is being studied by creatures of water and air. It simply follows the inexorable path laid out by gravity, a silent witness to the ruthless efficiency of the celestial machine. We find ourselves standing on the edge of a great realization. The chemical signature of this visitor tells us that the universe is far more diverse and perhaps far more desolate than we once believed. The red dwarf legacy is one of endurance, but also of hardship. Most of the planets in the galaxy may be like the one this fragment came from, scorched, airless, and composed of nothing but the most resilient molecules. We are the anomaly. Our wet blue world is the outlier in a cosmos of dry stone and carbon. As the Sentinel moves further away, its signal weakening as it returns to the oblivion of the deep dark, we are left with a sense of profound isolation. We have looked into the eyes of a stranger and seen a reflection of a universe that is ancient, cold, and entirely indifferent to the flickering spark of our existence. The history of the universe is not a story of progress toward life. It is a story of matter and energy moving through various states of decay, and we are merely a brief, luminous moment in that eternal process. The momentum of this traveller is not merely a physical attribute. It is a declaration of independence from our celestial neighbourhood. It moves at the staggering velocity of 48.2 kilometers per second. To the human mind, bound by the slow crawl of terrestrial life, such a number is an abstraction, a flickering ghost of a measurement. But in the cold mathematics of the abyss, this speed represents a threshold. It is the point where the sovereignty of our sun ends and the law of the interstellar void begins. At 48.2 kilometers per second, the visitor is a phantom that the sun cannot harvest. The gravity of our star, that immense and invisible hand which has choreographed the dance of the planets for 4,500,000,000 years, is here rendered impotent. The sun reaches out with its gravitational fingers, attempting to pull this stray fragment into a permanent embrace, to make it another loyal subject in the solar family, but the intruder is too fast. Its kinetic energy is a shield, a violent rejection of the local order. We must visualize the sheer magnitude of this energy. It is not the graceful arc of a planet or the predictable loop of a local comet. This is a ballistic trajectory, a singular event in the history of our system that will never be repeated. The kinetic energy possessed by this object is enough to shatter a continent, yet it traverses the silence of space without a sound, without a ripple. It is a one-time execution of a cosmic command, a solitary bullet fired from the darkness of one star system toward the darkness of another. We are merely the witnesses to its transit. It moves through our local space like a data packet passing through a vast ancient network. In the grand infrastructure of the cosmos, our solar system is but a single node, a brief intersection of coordinates. This visitor is the information, a condensed history of a distant world, flashing through our reality at speeds that challenge the very limits of our observation. By the time our mirrors are polished and our sensors are calibrated, the message has already begun its exit. The speed of 48.2 kilometers per second is a testament to the violence of its origin. To attain such a velocity, it had to be cast out by a catastrophe of unimaginable scale. Perhaps it was the death throes of a giant star or the gravitational whip of a gas giant larger than anything we have ever seen. It was forged in chaos and accelerated by the ruthless machinery of the universe, sent screaming into the void to wander for eons. Now, as it passes us, it serves as a reminder of the scale paradox. We look at the tiny, rocky fragment and see something small, something manageable. But its speed tells a different story. It tells of the inexorable vacuum where distance is measured in light years and time is measured in epochs. The visitor does not feel the sun's warmth. It is moving too fast to be touched by the radiance that sustains us. It is a guest that refuses to sit at the table, a shadow that ignores the light. There is a profound loneliness in this velocity. To move so fast is to be forever unmoored, to be a permanent exile. If the object was slower, it might have been captured, perhaps eventually finding a home in the asteroid belt or crashing into a moon to deposit its chemical secrets. But at 48.2 kilometers per second, there is no home. There is only the path. The trajectory is a straight line through a curved universe, a defiance of the local geometry. We watch it on our monitors, a tiny dot of light against the backdrop of the eternal stars, and we realize that we are seeing the very definition of the word transient. It is here for a moment of cosmic time, a fraction of a second in the life of the sun, and then it is gone back into the oblivion from which it emerged. The speed of its passage is a mockery of our desire to understand it. We want to stop it, to hold it, to dissect its frozen heart, but the universe grants no such favours. The mechanism of the cosmos is indifferent to our curiosity. The vacuum of space is often described as empty, but it is better understood as a medium of pure potential, a canvas for the display of absolute power. The velocity of this visitor quantifies that power. It represents a level of energy that would ignite the atmosphere of our world if it were to strike, turning cities to glass and oceans to steam in a heartbeat. Yet, in the vastness of the void, this energy is silent and invisible. It is a kinetic ghost. This reveals the true nature of the ruthless machine we inhabit. The universe does not operate on a human scale. It operates on the scale of mass and momentum, of heat and entropy. Our existence is a delicate equilibrium, a slow-moving eddy in a river that is moving at 48.2 kilometers per second. We are the exceptions to the rule of speed. We live in the slow lanes, huddled around our yellow sun, while the true reality of the cosmos rushes past us in the dark. As the Sentinel moves further away, its velocity ensures that it will never return. The umbilical cord of gravity is snapped. The sun, once a titan that commanded the movement of all things within its reach, becomes just another star in the rearview mirror of this traveller. The visitor is returning to the abyss, to the cold, silent regions between the fires. It carries with it the data of its transit, the subtle gravitational scars of its passage through our system, but it will never share them. It is a closed system, a sealed vessel of information that is moving too fast to be decoded. We are left with the realization that the universe is full of such messages, countless trillions of fragments moving through the dark, each one a testament to a world we will never see and a history we will never know. The velocity of 48.2 kilometers per second is the speed of forgetting. It is the rate at which the past recedes into the infinite, leaving us behind in our small, slow corner of the tapestry. This is the beauty and the horror of the cosmic narrator's tale. We are part of a symphony that we can only partially hear. Most of the music is played at frequencies and speeds that are beyond our reach. The visitor is a single note, a high-velocity vibrato that cuts through the steady rhythm of our planetary orbits. It reminds us that our stability is an illusion, a temporary stasis in a universe defined by movement and decay. The inexorable vacuum is not a place of rest, it is a place of transit. Everything is going somewhere, and most of it is going there at speeds that make our very lives seem like a standstill. We are the observers of a race that began before we were born, and will continue long after our sun has cooled to a cinder. The velocity of the visitor is the heartbeat of the void, a pulse of pure energy that echoes the primordial ignition of the cosmos. In the final reckoning, the visitor is a memento mori for the entire solar system. It shows us what lies beyond the safety of our gravitational cradle. It shows us that the universe is a place of immense kinetic potential, a gallery of objects moving with such purpose and speed that they transcend the very concept of a destination. The visitor is not going to a place, it is simply going. It is the personification of the journey and eternal movement through the dark. As it fades into the distance, its speed carrying it toward the next star system in a journey that will take tens of thousands of years, we are left with the silence. The data packet has passed, the network is quiet again, but we are changed by the knowledge of its passage. We have seen the velocity of the infinite, and we have understood, if only for a moment, that we are living on a slow-moving island in a very fast, very cold, and very ancient sea. The history of the universe is written in these transits, in the brief intersections of light and shadow, and in the inexorable momentum of the things that refuse to stay. To understand the true nature of what passed through our gates, we must look closer at the heart of the traveller during its most intimate encounter with our star. At the moment of perihelion, when the visitor was closest to the solar furnace, the relentless pressure of light and heat began a process of celestial flaying. The sun, a gargantuan engine of fusion that dictates the rhythm of our local reality, does not merely illuminate those who enter its domain, it tests them. It acts as a crucible, a purifying fire that burns away the pretenses of the primordial dark. As the sentinel dove toward this golden abyss, the outer layers that had protected it for countless eons began to unravel. This was not a gentle thawing, but a violent stripping of the mask. The ancient dust and the frozen chemical signatures of a distant, forgotten epoch were cast off into the void, leaving behind a trail of microscopic debris that the solar wind swept away like smoke in a gale. What emerged from this shroud was a revelation that challenged our perception of the natural world. Beneath the soot and the cosmic grime lay a core of such terrifying efficiency that it seemed more like a piece of high technology than a shard of planetary birth. Observations revealed a surface with an albedo of 90%. To conceive of such a number is to imagine a world made of polished silver or a landscape of fresh, untouched snow. Yet even those earthly comparisons fail to capture the reality of this object. Most planetary bodies are dark, sullen things. The moon, for all its nocturnal brilliance, is as dark as asphalt, and even the icy moons of the outer giants struggle to reflect more than half of the light that strikes them. But this visitor was different. It was a mirror in the void, a fragment of interstellar glass that did not absorb the sun's fury, but reflected it back into the abyss with an almost defiant clarity. This is the scale paradox that defines the visitor. We are confronted with a relatively small object, a mere speck in the vast tapestry of the cosmos, yet it possesses a surface that interacts with the primary energy source of our system with near-perfect efficiency. It is a tiny mechanism of reflection positioned against the overwhelming majesty of a star. In the silent machine of the universe, where entropy usually dictates a slow decay into darkness, this 90% albedo core stands as an anomaly. It is as if the universe had fashioned a tool specifically designed to witness the light without being consumed by it. The visitor did not become a victim of the sun, it became a reflection of it. For a few brief days, the sun saw its own terrible face mirrored in the heart of this traveller, a twin brilliance that flickered across the vacuum before the inexorable momentum of the visitor's path carried it back toward the cold. We must consider the implications of such a surface. In the ruthless machine of the cosmos, things are rarely this clean. The vacuum is a place of erosion, where high-energy particles and micrometeoroids usually dull the surfaces of every moon and asteroid until they are the colour of charcoal. For the visitor to maintain a reflectivity of 90% suggests a history that is either remarkably young or remarkably protected. It implies that the core was sealed away in a tomb of ice and rock for billions of years, a pristine remnant of a solar system that existed long before our own. Or perhaps it suggests a composition that we have yet to classify, a material that transcends the mineralogy of our local planets. It is a piece of the primordial ignition, a shard of the original symphony of creation that has remained untarnished by the passage of time and the decay of the deep dark. As the visitor reached the height of its transit, the reflection it cast was a beacon to the entire system. It was a signal that we were not merely being visited by a rock, but by a messenger of light. The mirror core acted as a sentinel standing at the intersection of the interstellar void and the solar hearth. It carried the sun's light deep within its physical structure, the photons bouncing off the highly polished grain of its substance before being flung back out into the eternal night. This was a moment of profound cosmic irony. The sun, which usually devours everything that comes too close, found itself rebuffed by a mirror. The visitor remained cold at its heart, its high albedo acting as a shield, a barrier of pure light that prevented the solar heat from penetrating the inner sanctum of its history. It was a closed system, a pearl of the abyss that refused to be opened by the fire. The beauty of this encounter lies in its absolute silence. There was no sound as the visitor's outer layers were stripped away, no scream as the solar wind hammered against the mirror core. There was only the inexorable movement of geometry and the play of light across a surface of interstellar glass. We are left to wonder about the origins of such a perfect reflector. Was it the result of a catastrophic collision in a distant star system, the heart of a shattered moon that had been compressed into a diamond-like purity? Or was it a byproduct of the very first epoch of the universe, a fragment of the primordial matter that has wandered the void since the beginning of time? The history of the universe is written in these transits, in the brief moments when the light of a star reveals the hidden perfections of the things that move through the dark. This mirror in the void serves as a reminder of our own fragility. We live on a world that absorbs the sun's energy, a world that is warm and wet and defined by its ability to take in the light. We are the consumers of solar fury. But the visitor is a reflector. It does not want what the sun has to offer. It only wants to pass through. It is a witness that refuses to be part of the scene. The 90% albedo core is the ultimate expression of the outsider. It moves through our system with the speed of forgetting, reflecting our world and our sun back at us, but keeping none of it for itself. It is a silver ghost, a remnant of a mechanism that operates on a scale of time and space that makes our very existence seem like a flickering spark in a vast cold cellar. As the sentinel moves further into the outer reaches, the light it reflects begins to dim, not because the core has lost its brilliance, but because the source of the light is receding. The mirror is still there, polished and perfect, but it no longer has anything to reflect. It returns to the state it has known for eons, a silent, dark diamond moving through a sea of obsidian. The catastrophe of its solar encounter is over, and the visitor is once again a part of the void. It carries with it the memory of our sun, etched into the paths of the photons it sent back into the abyss, but it remains a sealed vessel. We have seen the reflection, but we have not seen the thing itself. We have looked into the mirror of the cosmos and seen only our own star, while the traveller, in its majestic and icy indifference, continues its journey into the eternal. The history of the universe is a symphony of such transits, a collection of mirrors moving in the dark, each one reflecting a different light, and each one eventually returning to the silence of the great unravelling. The moment of closest approach has passed, and with it, the brief intimacy between the visitor and our star begins to dissolve. This is the narrowing window, the inevitable cooling of an encounter that was always destined to be fleeting. As the traveller rounds the sun, the sheer intensity of the solar furnace reaches its zenith. The heat is an invisible hammer, a deluge of radiation that attempts to breach the mirror of the visitor's surface. For a few brief days, the object glows with a borrowed radiance so fierce that it outshines its own history. The ice and the dust, the silicate memories of a distant epoch, are energized by the fire of our local sun. But even at this peak of visibility, the machine of the cosmos is already preparing for the expulsion. The visitor is caught in the gears of a mechanism that does not care for the beauty of the light. It is a ruthless machine, a clockwork of gravity and velocity that operates with a cold and mathematical precision. Gravity in this theatre is not a welcoming embrace, but a rigid set of tracks. It is the invisible architecture that dictates the path of every atom and every moon. As the visitor accelerated toward the sun, it was being drawn into a trap of light and heat, but the very speed that brought it here now serves as the instrument of its departure. The slingshot is engaged. The sun, a massive anchor of burning hydrogen, pulls at the visitor with a force that would crush a lesser thing, but the traveller possesses a momentum that is ancient and inexorable. It swings around the solar pole, its trajectory bent by the curve of space-time, and is flung back toward the abyss from which it emerged. This is the beginning of the end. The window of observation is closing, and the file on this interstellar wanderer is being prepared for its final entry. We watch through our glass eyes, our telescopes and our sentinels in orbit, as the visitor begins its retreat. The data streams are thinning. The high-resolution images that captured the texture of its silver skin begin to blur and pixelate as the distance grows by millions of kilometers every hour. We are witnessing the closing of a door. In the archives of human knowledge, this event will be catalogued and analysed, its chemical signature dissected and its origins debated, but the object itself is already beyond our reach. It is moving with such velocity that it has achieved escape speed, a term that carries a weight of finality. It will never return. The three-eye atlas, these fragments of a larger story, are destined to become ghosts once more. They have paid their tribute to the sun, and now they are being returned to the dark. The heat that once threatened to unravel the visitor begins to fade. The thermal radiation drops away as the distance from the sun increases, and the silver core returns to its natural state of profound cold. The intense glow that marked its passage through the inner system is replaced by a dimming flicker. It is as if the universe is reclaiming its secret. The ruthless machine of gravity has performed its function, turning the visitor's path into a hyperbolic arc that points toward the emptiness between the stars. There is no force in our solar system strong enough to bring it back. No planet, no matter how massive, can exert a pull sufficient to chain this traveller to our sun. It is a sovereign entity of the void, passing through our domain without ever becoming a part of it. This departure is a masterclass in the indifference of the cosmos. To the visitor, our sun was merely a temporary source of friction, a brief surge of temperature in a journey that spans billions of years. To us, it was a revelation, a message from the deep past that we barely had time to translate. But the machine does not pause for reflection. The orbits of the planets continue their silent dance, the solar wind continues to howl into the vacuum, and the visitor continues its journey into the obsidian sea. We are left on the shore watching a light that is no longer there. The window of observation was finite, a tiny sliver of time in the vast tapestry of the eons, and now that window has been shuttered. As the object crosses the orbit of the outer giants, the light of the sun becomes nothing more than a particularly bright star in its sky. The warmth is gone, replaced by the absolute zero of the interstellar medium. The visitor is once again a silent diamond, a sentinel of the abyss that carries within it the history of a place we will never see. It moves toward the edge of the heliosphere, that invisible boundary where the influence of our sun finally gives way to the pressure of the galaxy at large. Once it passes that threshold, it will be truly gone, a wanderer in the great silence that separates the island universes of the stars. The tragedy of our observation is that we only ever see the middle of the story. We catch a glimpse of the traveller as it crosses our path, but we are blind to its beginning and we will be absent for its end. The ruthless machine ensures that we are only ever witnesses to the transit. We see the flash of the mirror, the bend in the light, and then the slow fade into oblivion. This is the nature of our existence in the cosmos. We are inhabitants of a small, bright room, and every so often something moves past the window. We rush to look. We marvel at its shape and its speed, and then it is gone into the night. We are left to wonder about the dark house that surrounds our room, and the other travellers that move through the halls we cannot see. The three-eye atlas represent a narrowing of our horizon. Each kilometre they travel away from us is a lost opportunity, a piece of the puzzle that we will never hold. The data will eventually stop. The signals will become too weak to distinguish from the background noise of the universe, the hiss and crackle of the primordial fire that still echoes through the void. We will send out one last command, a final request for information, and we will receive only silence in return. The traveller will not answer. It is no longer listening to the whispers of a small planet near a yellow star. It is listening to the rhythm of the galaxy, the slow and heavy pulse of the stars as they orbit the central black hole. The history of the universe is a collection of these departures. For every star that is born, 1,000 fragments are cast out into the dark. For every world that thrives, 1,000,000 others are lost to the cold. The visitor is a reminder of the sheer scale of the waste, the vast amount of matter and memory that drifts through the cosmos, unseen and unremembered. It is a pearl of the abyss that we were lucky enough to glimpse, but luck is a fleeting thing in a universe governed by the laws of motion. The machine does not favour the lucky, it only follows the curve. As we close the file, we are struck by a sense of melancholic optimism. We did not catch the traveller, and we could not keep it, but for a brief moment we shared the same light. We looked into the mirror and saw the reflection of our own curiosity. The visitor continues its journey into the eternal, a silent witness to the unfolding of time, and we continue our journey on our own small craft, orbiting our own star, waiting for the next light to flicker in the dark. The window is closed, the traveller is gone, and the void remains as vast and as silent as it has always been. The symphony of the transits continues, but for this particular movement, the music has faded into the hiss of the stars. In the end, we are all travellers in the dark, moving toward an exit that we cannot see, caught in the gears of a machine that never stops turning. The visitor is simply the first to leave the room. The silence that remains after the departure of the traveller is not an empty thing, but a heavy realization that the cosmos operates on a set of rules that have no interest in our survival or our understanding. We often find ourselves looking at the heavens as if they were a mirror, searching for some reflection of our own purpose, or some sign that we are being watched over by a benevolent design. But as we peer deeper into the abyss, we find only the cold, crystalline beauty of mathematics. The universe is not a theatre built for an audience. It is a calculation unfolding with an indifference so profound it borders on the sublime. The sunward glow that bathes our world in the morning is a prime example of this cosmic apathy. We feel the warmth on our skin, and we speak of the sun as a life-giver, a golden guardian that keeps the shadows at bay. Yet the sun does not know we are here. It does not burn to provide us with light, nor does it hold our planet in its gravitational grip out of a sense of duty. It is a massive nuclear furnace, a sphere of plasma where hydrogen atoms are crushed into helium by a pressure so immense it defies the imagination. This process, governed by the laws of physics that were written in the first few microseconds of the primordial fire, produces energy as a byproduct of its own mass. The light that travels across the 93 million miles of vacuum to reach our eyes is simply the result of an equation reaching its inevitable conclusion. It would shine just as brightly and just as fiercely if the Earth were a barren rock, devoid of any eye to see its brilliance or any heart to feel its heat. This is the mathematical indifference of the infinite. We inhabit a reality where the fundamental constants of nature, the strength of gravity, the speed of light, and the charge of an electron are tuned to values that allow for the existence of stars and atoms, but these values were not chosen for our benefit. They are the fixed parameters of the machine. If gravity were slightly stronger, the universe would have collapsed back into itself billions of years ago. If it were slightly weaker, the stars would never have ignited. We exist because the math allowed it, not because the universe intended it. We are the fortunate beneficiaries of a cosmic lottery that has been running for 13,800,000,000 years, and the prize is a brief moment of consciousness in a desert of eternal silence. When we look at the blue speck we call home, we see a fragile oasis of life. But from the perspective of the vast distances of the galaxy, the Earth is merely a point of mass following the curvature of space-time. Gravity does not distinguish between a cathedral and a mountain of lead. It does not care for the history of the cities it holds against the crust or the dreams of the people who walk upon them. It is an inexorable force, a bend in the fabric of the void that dictates the motion of everything, from the smallest grain of sand to the largest supercluster of galaxies. This deterministic nature of the cosmos is both terrifying and beautiful. It suggests that every event, from the collision of two black holes to the fall of a leaf, is part of a singular, unfolding mechanism. There is no room for caprice or miracle in the gears of this machine. There is only the steady, rhythmic pulse of cause and effect echoing through the eons. The tragedy of our existence is that we are biological entities programmed to seek meaning in a system that provides only data. We look at the tapestry of the night sky, and we see constellations, creating myths to bridge the gap between the stars. We imagine that the heavens are speaking to us, or that the alignment of the planets might offer some insight into our destinies. But the stars are distant suns, many of them already dead, their light only now reaching us after travelling through the abyss for thousands of years. They are sentinels of a past that has no memory of us. They burn because they must, and they will die because entropy demands it. The universe does not design illusions for our benefit, it simply is. This realization brings us to a state of melancholic optimism. If the universe is indifferent to our presence, then the meaning we find within it is entirely our own. We are the ones who give the light its beauty. We are the ones who find rhythm in the chaos and symphony in the noise. The math provides the structure, the cold and unyielding skeleton of reality, but it is the observer who provides the breath of life. Our consciousness is a rare flicker of light in a dark house, a brief window through which the universe can look at itself. We are the way the cosmos knows its own geometry. As we move toward the final epoch of our journey, we must accept that the machine will continue to turn long after we have been devoured by the decay of time. The stars will eventually exhaust their fuel and fade into oblivion. The galaxies will drift so far apart that the light of one will never reach another. The universe will continue to follow its mathematical instructions until the very last atom is torn asunder and the void is all that remains. This is not a catastrophe. It is the natural conclusion of the calculation. The indifference of the infinite is not a threat, but a liberation. It frees us from the burden of cosmic expectation and allows us to exist for the sake of existing. We are travellers on a small, bright craft, moving through a sea of dark matter and ancient radiation. We are surrounded by a mechanism that is both beautiful and ruthless, a system that functions through gravity and light, without regard for the biological entities watching from their blue speck of dust. We are the witness to a story that was never written for us, yet we are the only ones capable of reading the words. In the face of such vast and silent unconcern, our curiosity becomes our greatest strength. We look into the abyss not because we expect it to answer, but because we are the only ones who can ask the question. The history of the universe is a long and lonely transit, and though the math is cold, the fact that we can understand it at all is the most profound miracle of the age. This miracle is not a suspension of the laws of physics, but rather their ultimate expression. In the silence of the deep cosmos, where the temperature hovers only fractions of a degree above the absolute zero of total stillness, a terminal exists. It is not a terminal of wires and glowing screens, but a boundary of logic, a final outpost of the intellect where the math of the beginning meets the entropy of the end. We find ourselves standing before this metaphorical console, watching the data of 10 billion years stream past in a river of light and shadow. We are the subroutines that have, through some magnificent and unintentional glitch in the architecture of the void, become aware of the source code. We have spent eons as mere ripples in the quantum sea, yet now we have climbed onto the shore of consciousness to look back at the tide that carried us here. The source code of the universe is written in the language of fundamental constants, in the strength of the nuclear forces and the inexorable curvature of space and time. For the vast majority of the history of the cosmos, this code ran in total darkness. Suns ignited, galaxies collided, and black holes devoured the remnants of entire solar systems without a single eye to witness the catastrophe. The machine functioned with a terrifying precision, governed by equations that required no validation and no applause. But then, on a tiny, fragile speck of silicate and iron orbiting a mundane yellow star, the calculation changed. The chemical pathways of life began to iterate upon themselves, growing in complexity until they reached a threshold of self-reflection. Suddenly the universe was no longer just a sequence of events, it was a story. We are the witness. This is our primary function in the grand tapestry of existence. While the stars are bound to their fusion, and the planets to their orbits, we are the only part of the mechanism that can pause to contemplate the beauty of the motion. We are the aperture through which the cosmos gazes upon its own majesty. When we measure the distance to a remote quasar or decipher the remnants of the cosmic microwave background radiation, we are the universe performing a diagnostic on itself. We are the recursive loop in the grand simulation, the moment where the calculation turns its gaze inward and realizes its own vastness. This realization is both a gift and a burden, for to understand the scale of the cosmos is to understand our own profound insignificance within it. Yet there is a sublime power in this insignificance. If we are merely a glitch in the ruthless machine of entropy, then we are the most beautiful error ever committed by the laws of thermodynamics. The fact that we exist at all, that we can feel the warmth of a dying sun, or weep at the cold silence of the abyss, is a defiance of the void. The universe is a system designed to descend into disorder, to eventually unravel until every spark of energy is dissipated and every memory is erased by the encroaching oblivion. But for this brief epoch, between the fire of the primordial beginning and the frozen silence of the end, we have carved out a space for meaning. We have built cathedrals of thought and bridges of mathematics to span the gulf between our world and the infinite. As we look toward the final horizon of our understanding, we see the terminal of the cosmos flickering. The stars are moving away from us at an accelerating pace, pushed by the invisible hand of dark energy. A time will come, trillions of years in the future, when the sky will be truly empty. The inhabitants of that distant era, if any exist, will look out into a void so absolute that they will have no evidence that other galaxies ever existed. They will live in a universe of a single island of fading light, surrounded by an eternal darkness. To them, the cosmos will seem small and static, a lonely outpost in an infinite sea of nothingness. We are fortunate to live in the golden age of the witness, a time when the tapestry is still visible, when the light of the distant past still reaches our shores, and the history of the whole is still ours to read. This brings us to a state of melancholic optimism. We know that the machine will eventually stop. We know that the witness will eventually fall silent and the terminal will go dark. The atoms that compose our bodies, the neurons that allow us to perceive the stars, and the very planet beneath our feet will all be returned to the abyss. The memory of our species, our triumphs, and our sorrows will be devoured by the inexorable decay of time. There is no escape from the heat death of the universe. There is no permanent record in a system that eventually erases all data. And yet, the fact that the symphony played at all is what matters. The beauty is not found in the longevity of the performance, but in the precision of the notes and the clarity of the sound while it lasts. We find beauty in the glitch because the glitch is where the meaning resides. The math may be cold and the vacuum may be indifferent, but the observer is full of heat and light. We are the part of the calculation that decided that the stars were worth naming. We are the subroutines that found value in the way the light of a distant nebula filters through a telescope. Even if the universe does not care that we are watching, we care. Our curiosity is the only thing that transforms a collection of gas and dust into a celestial wonder. Our awareness is the only thing that makes the passage of time something more than a mere increment of entropy. As we continue to watch the terminal of the cosmos, we prepare for the next phase of our journey. The history of the universe is not a closed book, but an ongoing process of discovery. There are still layers of the source code that remain hidden, dimensions of reality that we have only begun to intuit, and mysteries of the primordial era that still haunt our equations. We will continue to peer into the dark, to send our probes into the abyss, and to refine our understanding of the mechanism that created us. We are the sentinels of the light, the temporary guardians of the cosmic story. The future of our exploration lies in the places where the math breaks down, in the hearts of black holes and the first trillionth of a second after the beginning. We will go there not because we expect to find a home, but because we are driven by the inexorable need to know. We are the way the universe asks why, and though the answer may never be fully revealed, the act of asking is what defines us. We are travellers on a long and lonely transit through the eons, but we're not lost. We are exactly where we are supposed to be, at the edge of the known, looking out into the unknown with eyes wide and hearts open to the vast, silent majesty of the eternal cosmos. The calculation continues, the machine turns, and we, the witness, remain to see the glory in every fleeting spark of existence before the final oblivion.